Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted the number 1 would be the Super Mario Bros. Movie, number 2 would be Are You There God? It's Me Margaret, number 3 would be Evil Dead Rise, number 4 would be Big George Foreman, and number 5 would be Sisu. And I only got 1 out of 5 of my predictions right for this weekend. I knew it was going to be tough just because, these movies could go anywhere. It's not very easy to predict. I really fumbled up and only got 1 out of 5 correct, and of course it was the obvious one. Big George Foreman, by the way, only got in at number 11, so it only, it's not even really in the top 10. It could be, maybe when the official numbers are out, maybe Big George Foreman will have like a slight spike with Sunday afternoon stuff, and it'll jump into number 10, taking out whatever the number 10 is, which we'll talk about. But as of right now, it's not even really worth talking about. So let's go over what actually happened. Number 1, my only prediction right was, of course, the Super Mario Bros. Movie having another incredible hold before the eve of the new MCU film. Yeah, it made $40 million this weekend, so now that adds to a domestic total of $490 million. As I said last weekend, it already became Illumination's highest grossing film domestically, so worldwide is kind of where it needs to keep advancing, and eventually we'll see it overtake these other films, because right now worldwide it is sitting at $1,022 million. It has outgrossed The Secret Life of Pets worldwide total by $137 million, Minions: The Rise of Gru by $83, and Despicable Me 2 by $47, and it's only $10 million away until it outgrosses Despicable Me 3. And then it'll only have one more movie to go at that point until it becomes the highest grossing Illumination film ever. So worldwide and domestic, just in general, of all time. So that's really incredible. Obviously, I think we won't see like a significant drop, but we will, obviously, it will not be number 1 anymore, but this is a pretty good streak for the movie to be number 1 for this long. Pretty much the entirety of April, it's been just the number 1 movie for every weekend of April, which, that's pretty good to just dominate a whole month like that. That's a very clever release strategy on Universal's part. And obviously, when it comes to Mario, most other movies competing with it will, fall under. But the fact that there was not like another MCU film or like any other big competition that could have potentially dethroned it, like, at all. Evil Dead Rise is not like a big enough like Mario competition, you know what I mean? It's just a really clever release strategy. So good on them. They're making more money. Let's move on to number 2, which is still Evil Dead Rise. It dropped like, fair like 50%, I think was the exact one the numbers had on their website. So, yeah, not bad at all. Making $12 million this weekend, which adds to a domestic total of $44 million. So $10 million still behind the 2013 Evil Dead remake. Eventually we'll be seeing it overcome that. That'll be like literally next weekend. I think for sure we'll be seeing that happen. And then worldwide it is sitting at $86 million, where it's $13 million behind the 2013 remake. So like I said, next weekend, even though, Guardians is going to take over most of the box office conversation, I think it'll still, make what it needs. It's not going to drop off so much where when we come back next week, it's going to be like, well, actually it's behind 2013 by 1 million. I say this now, but maybe that does happen. I don't know, but I doubt it. But it's still doing good. With that $19 million budget, they've already tripled it, quadrupled it, whatever. It's fine. It's doing great. I know Bruce Campbell said like they're going to try to make these like every 2-3 years now instead of just the 10, in reference to how long it's been since the 2013 remake. So yeah, they don't need any more proof that they have the audience to get there. I do hope that, this does become something that becomes bigger and better than what it is currently right now, because I did like this movie. I thought it was solid. I didn't think it was amazing, and watching it, I didn't really think like, man, I could use like 16,000 more Evil Dead movies. I think there's definitely avenues to do different scenery, different ideas, but slight variations of the premise, like, oh, instead of a cabin, now they're in an apartment building. That can only go so far, especially if the apartment building is literally just like one floor of the apartment building. So, let's see where they go with that. Hopefully this thing really does take off for them, because obviously, like I said, they have the audience right here for it. Number 3 is Are You There God? It's Me Margaret. So not quite enough of like a, fans of the book kind of audience coming in to make it number 2. But, as far as the other new releases, it's the highest opening weekend for them. It's doing better than Big George Foreman. I can say that for sure. But on a budget of $30 million, it only made $6 million this weekend. Now, there's no worldwide total right now. I don't know if there ever will be. We'll see how it goes, obviously. But obviously, even though the budget is, pretty modest, it's still not a great number, especially, with the hope of like, maybe it can hold over well. It's like, well, maybe, but it's not, it's just not looking great, As far as the director's previous film, The Edge of 17, it had an opening $2 million above that, so that's pretty good. Obviously, 2016 and 2023 movie releases for these kind of things, it's a little different now, but whatever. It still had a higher opening than Edge of 17, which is, that's a good sign, and it's only $8 million away from outgrossing that movie's entire domestic run, so maybe we'll see that happen. It was a really good movie, like I saw it in my theater, not large, but it, like a moderate, size theater, not small either. It had a pretty great turnout, and I'm hoping that, it can have an audience as the years go by, what I mean? Because that's kind of how it's looking like. If it does manage to have like a Puss in Boots or Greatest Showman kind of effect where like, well, actually it made more this weekend than its opening, then, completely different story. But right now it's kind of looking like it needs a cult following to be remembered. I hope that is the case, because it's very good. Obviously the book has been around forever, but in the case of this movie, very good, very important. Hope people go check it out anyway at this point. Number 4, we have John Wick Chapter 4, making $5 million, adding to a domestic total of $176 million. So officially, $5 million over John Wick Parabellum, so it is the highest grossing John Wick film domestically as well as worldwide. That already happened a couple weeks ago, though. We've been waiting on this domestic one, a slow crawl to get here, but here we are. Fantastic, to say the least. And the fact that, so many other movies, have come out ever since, but this one has still been able to cling on, that's pretty special, to say the least. Worldwide, it is sitting at $369 million, $31 million until it gets to $400 million worldwide. I'm kind of hoping that we see that happen before it leaves the top 10, at least. That would be really great to see. Either way, it's, already tripled its $100 million budget, but I'd love for it to just get to that next stepping stone, That's kind of all I have to add at this point. Obviously, this movie's already done so well. Number 5, Return of the Jedi. It's the re-release that I completely forgot about. I didn't, honestly, like, even if I did know it was coming out, I think there would have still been a part of me that was like, are people really clamoring to go back? Because it's, it's on Disney Plus. I mean, you could say that about any re-release, but at this point, it's like, Star Wars and it's Return of the Jedi. It's not even Empire Strikes Back. It's not, everyone's favorite original. I mean, some people have this as their favorite, but most of the time, if you ask someone, it's going to be either Empire or even the first Star Wars. So, I mean, good. I mean, obviously the number isn't amazing. It only made $4.6 million this weekend, adding to the overall domestic total of $313 million. Worldwide bumps it up to $479 million, but still, it's good enough to get into the top 5 and overshadow some of the other new releases this weekend, which is kind of funny. We'll talk about, not Big George Foreman, I already mentioned that one, but we'll talk about the other one in just a little bit. But first, number 6, Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. I think it'll still stick around in some theaters, but this is kind of like its last kind of, gasping breath, and it's still holding over kind of well. It's still not enough to triple its $150 million budget, but, I heard it's coming to digital, like premium video on demand, this Tuesday, next 2 days. So we'll probably see. If it's still in theaters, it'll probably have like a big drastic drop off, because at that point it's like, well, it's at home now. I don't know. I saw this movie again with a friend, and like the theater obviously smaller than the one I initially saw it in, but it was still relatively pretty full. So I'm glad that, this movie, at least word of mouth, is spreading enough where this movie can still scrounge up some money, even if it isn't enough. Like it's still almost, worldwide it is sitting at $194 million right now. So it's still almost at $200 million worldwide, which is pretty damn good still. You know what I mean? It made $4.1 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $88 million. If it got to $100 million domestically, that'd be great. Kind of a pipe dream at this point, but worldwide there's still that chance to get that $6 million, which it probably will actually. 4.1 million this weekend. Like, yeah, I think there's enough to kind of push it over. But either way, it's gonna hit digital, and I'm hoping that maybe a spike of interest once it's at home maybe we can see more of these characters, more of this world, because that's what I really loved about this movie. And I was really hoping more people would realize that. And some people are. It's just, it's not that same kind of carryover success that you very rarely see, like with The Greatest Showman and Puss in Boots, as I already mentioned before. That was like the, oh my gosh, these opened kind of poorly, like, oh, kind of a big bummer, but then they really held over well. You know, word of mouth was really that strong for them. And it's not often that happens. It's kind of like, well, word of mouth is helping, but it's pushing them over the finish line like with those other two examples. Still, though, I'm glad that this movie reached some people. Number 7 is Air, making 3.9 million, adding to a domestic total of 47 million. Still 45 million behind Ben Affleck's The Town. Worldwide, it is sitting at 74 million, which is 78 million behind Ben Affleck's The Town. I don't really, funny enough, I really don't have anything else to add to this, because it's like, yeah, I've already covered, like, it's already an Amazon original, they're going to stream it, you know, everyone got paid fairly, as what Ben Affleck has said in interviews, and that was kind of the whole point of making this movie as well, and their production company, so it's not really that interesting to talk about, to say the least. So let's move on to number 8, which is another one that's similar to the Return of the Jedi re-release. I don't know what this is. I'm going to butcher this name. I'm so sorry. It's Ponniyin Selvan Part 2, making 3.8 million on a budget of 110 crore. No worldwide total as of right now. Hopefully, for their sake, that can change at some point. But, I mean, the fact that it entered the top 10, and I don't even know what it is, and it made 3.8 million, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what that movie is. I'm sure a lot of people in the general audience don't know what it is. This is a very kind of niche, specific film, but that audience came and showed up and supported it, so that's fantastic. I have nothing else to add. Similar to Air, I have nothing else to add to that, though. So let's move on to number 9, which is Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. Oh boy, dropping from number 3 to number 9. Goddamn, this is not a good year for Guy Ritchie. You know what I mean? First Operation Fortune, and now this one lasted a little bit longer. And with it making 3.6 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 12 million, it has outgrossed Operation Fortune by 6 million. So there's that, to say the least. It's still 15 million behind his other kind of COVID release, Wrath of Man. And it still has that budget of 55 million that they have not doubled or gotten close to at all. So, womp womp. This is a pretty big bummer, must say. It's kind of sad. But anyways, there's been another new release that I predicted for the top 5 that I haven't mentioned yet, and it's because it's right here at number 10. Not Polite Society. That was another one that's a pretty good movie, and I hope more people get to see that at some point, because that also, it didn't even get close like Big George Foreman. That's a flop, unfortunately, which I kind of predicted. Anyways, number 10 was Sisu, making 3.2 million. On Wikipedia, its budget was listed under, I believe, euros, so I had it, converted, like, what's this in USD? So it kind of averaged out to 6.6 million. That's kind of what the budget listed is for our numbers. Worldwide, it is already sitting at 5.4 million, so they still need about 13.2 million to be considered a success. That's the doubling point for the 6.6 number that I have. Not looking great. This is definitely not a great opening for that. The budget is still relatively low, so I'm kind of bummed that the initial kind of marketing campaign, because the first time I ever found out about this movie and saw this trailer was when I saw John Wick 4 in a packed audience, and that red band trailer took people by surprise. And I was hoping that would maybe push this movie into kind of like a finish line of like, yeah, it's going to do well, because that marketing strategy was mint. And it kind of didn't. I don't know how many people knew this was coming out. Even, like, maybe people were interested to see this, but then there was, like, it, kind of slips their mind, like, oh, yeah, I did want to see that. Oh, it already came and went. Big bummer. I don't know. This was not a good weekend for the new releases. Even for the one that did get into the top 5, it may not even double its $30 million budget. So big bummer all around. But please go check out. Sisu is decent. Go check out Sisu. And go check out Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. That was really great. And Polite Society was a lot of fun. Go check out these movies, please. Well, you probably can't, because there's a big tentpole movie coming out next week, so never mind. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I am, of course, going with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and despite my cynicism for tentpole movies taking over the box office, this is one that I'm, like, genuinely really hyped up for, so I'm very excited to see this movie. I hope this movie does well. I would hate for this to fall in the other trend of, like, other MCU movies, like your Ant-Man's, or even Thor Love and Thunder to an extent, kind of disappointing. I really hope that's not the case, because I love these characters. I love James Gunn. I can't wait to see this. Never mind. Let's move on. Number 2, I think, will be the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which I think will be really great to have 2 Chris Pratt movies back to back. Number 3, I think, will be that rom-com Love Again, only because, with Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret, all these other movies kind of opening so low, I think that one will be able to sneak in. And then number 4, I think, will be Evil Dead Rise. And then number 5, Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.